Thank you for listening to this podcast from TRE, Talk Radio Europe, your voice in Spain and around the world. For more information, please visit tre.radio.
You're listening to Hannah Murray on The Book Show.
Joining us on the line now is Sasha Debevec-McKenny. She is this year's winner of the world's largest and most prestigious literary prize for young writers, Swansea University Dylan Thomas Prize. It's for her debut poetry collection, Joy is My Middle Name. It's the third poetry collection to ever win the coveted prize and chosen in a unanimous decision by this year's judging panel. Joy is My Middle Name was hailed by the judges as an exuberant, blistering collection full of life, humour and ideas, and an antidote to our tricky times. It documents the journey of crawling through your 20s and emerging into your 30s, navigating sex, race, womanhood, addiction, sobriety, consumerism and pop culture. Welcome to the book show, Sasha.
I'm so happy to be here. Thank you.
Oh, it's great to have you with us, and congratulations. You've literally just won this award. So exciting.
It is so exciting. It's kind of unbelievable. Like, I wouldn't believe it, except for I had to physically carry the really heavy award all the way back to the United States.
Oh, amazing. So, I mean, what does this mean to you? What do you think the impact of winning an award like this will have, hopefully?
I mean, the thing that I had said, I really can't even comprehend that. I think because it's just so much bigger than I ever could have imagined. Like, even the fact that I'm talking to you right now is like so exciting to me. And I mean, I'm hopeful that more people will read the collection, because I think something I'm really proud of is that the poems are like accessible. You can understand them. And I think poetry has this bad rap of like being inaccessible and being confusing on purpose. And like, I truly believe like if more people understood like what you could say clearly with the poem, more people would write it, you know? And maybe more people will write a poem if they read my book and they're like, oh, poems are allowed to make sense. Poems are allowed to be fun. Poems are allowed to be joyful. Like, they're not this sad thing about flowers every time. They can be.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
It's so true. I love poetry, and I think it's a shame when people see it as something that's elite, that's that they don't understand, and, you know, only for really educated people, and all these kind of myths about poetry.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I don't know, right after I won the prize, me and my editor went to see Top Gun Maverick. Like, you can really love both things, you know?
Sure. So tell us about your poetry then. How, when and why did you start writing poetry?
I was actually really lucky to go to like an arts high school in the United States. So I would go to regular high school in the morning and take my like arts or my like science and math classes. And then like right around lunchtime, they would bring us to this whole other school, and I would just take poetry classes. And, so it's something that I've been taking really seriously for a really long time, even though, you know, when you're 14, you're like, my poems were bad, but I thought they were amazing, and I cared about them, and the people around me cared about them, you know? And so for me, it's just like kind of been, since I found out I could write a poem, like since I found out they were allowed to make sense, it's just been the only way I've been able to like process all my big feelings, whether my big feelings be about sobriety or heartbreak or race or American history, and like feeling freedom to put it all in there together too. So yeah, I don't know. I feel like I've always written poems, and it's just my favorite thing in the world.
Yeah, that's nice. And it's your way of expressing what you're feeling and what you're going through in your life, like a diary in a way.
Yeah, I mean, I think what's nice is that you get to take those feelings and you get to control them, right? So you're like, I'm going to take the feelings, but I'm going to make them rhyme. Or I'm going to take the feelings and I'm going to make them be this shape. Or I'm going to set a rule for myself, like every line has to end like this or start like this or contain a simile or whatever, right? So you get to kind of fool yourself into not totally like focusing sort of outside the feelings so that you can get them down.
Yeah. And do all your poems rhyme, or do you have different styles?
They absolutely do not rhyme, but one of my favorite books of poetry is Couplets by Maggie Milner. And that is a book of entirely rhyming couplets. And every time I read that book, because I teach it to my students at any possible opportunity, it makes me love rhyme more and more. And I feel like I've been experimenting more and more with that, but, I don't know. It's something so nice. Just, yeah. Poems are songs, so it's nice when they rhyme too, even though I would have hated myself for saying that, when I was 14.
And what's the difference for you when if the poems don't rhyme, how and why don't you develop them into short stories? What keeps them as poems?
Oh, well, I'm lazy. So I'm definitely not writing a short story. I can tell you that much. But also, I don't know, it's just this, I think it's the act of condensing and compartmentalizing that is so, I hesitate to say therapeutic, but it is kind of therapeutic. It's like it's a puzzle, it's like a lot of times going into a poem, I know the first line in my head, or I know the last line maybe, or where I kind of want it to go. And then, you have to figure out, half the time I think to myself, okay, I know this is how the poem's going to end. It ends a totally different way. And I'm sure that short stories do that too, obviously. But I don't know. For me, there's something so magical about poems and shapeless, but full of shape. I don't know. I think I was just supposed to be a poet. I love patterns. And so I don't know. Maybe I should start writing short stories too. But it seems so long.
Yeah, no, fair enough. And are all your poems different lengths?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I would say it really depends, because a lot of the poems in the book were written during my master's program over the course of the last eight years or so, 2017 to 2013, 2017 to 2024-ish. So I think over that time period, my voice has changed, which is a good thing, right? Because it means I'm changing and I'm growing. So I think recently I've been writing shorter poems, but the poems in the book are mostly long, because that's the mode I was in. And then I honestly think, living through COVID, lockdowns and stuff like that really made my voice a lot quieter. And also not being in my 20s anymore made my voice a lot quieter. And also just the confidence to write a short poem, or to trust that it's okay. Because, there's nowhere to hide in a short poem. And I think, I love to hide my feelings in poems. And so as I've gotten more brave, and as you win awards like this, it sort of makes you think okay, well, what if I do try something new? What if I do just go for it because people liked what I've been doing so far? It's very encouraging.
So is there one of your shorter poems maybe that you could share with us?
Oh my goodness. Yes, I can. This one's in the book. Is that okay?
Yeah. Okay.
So this is called Like, and I would say usually I don't really say anything before the poems, but I like that. This poem came from, it's always really important to me. I love working in restaurants. I love when writers, you could see that they have a job. So this is from something that happened to me in a restaurant. Okay. So as I led the man through the crowded restaurant and to his table at the back, he said, "You sure are packing us in here like on slave ships," when he could have said anything else. Packing us in here like daisies into a grocery store bouquet, packed together like the pages of a wet book, like A-listers in a Wes Anderson movie, like hemorrhoid cream in an unopened tube, like pennies in a pickle jar, like 40 to 50 exuberant rural children in an underfunded classroom, like a family of polar bears crowded together on a floating sheet of ice. He could have said even, like your ass in those jeans, blood in a syringe, silver compact vehicles on the Beltline at rush hour, styrofoam tight in its cardboard box. Yes, I was packing him in there, like textured ground beef material into a Taco Bell grilled stuffed burrito, like Amish girls in the back of a white van on the way to Walmart, like bone regrowing inside a plaster cast, like the flames in a fire, like the fingers in my fist. just is.
Wow. Love that. So powerful. Gosh.
Thank you.
And did that really happen? He said that?
I think he said that, yes.
Wow.
Yeah. But it's like when something happens like that to you, I don't know. I think humor does seem like a valid reaction. It's like, how do I even process this? Like, I have to laugh at it or else I'll cry.
Yes, kill him.
I think, yeah, exactly. Or kill him. Yeah. So I do feel like those are actually, yes, two big things in my book. It's like, or in my work in general, like I love learning about the presidents. I love learning about American history, but that stuff makes you really angry. And when you feel angry or you feel confused, it's like a poem it's not giving answers, but it gives some clarity, I think, when you write it.
And do you think, obviously it must vary, but do you think on average, what kind of emotions that you're feeling inspires the most poetry, do you think?
Oh my goodness. Well, when I went through like my first really bad breakup, when I was like way too old, like 31. And, oh my God, the poems I was writing, they were so sad, but they felt like, it made me feel like I was 14 again, like I just let go and I just was like, I feel this crazy stuff. And I sent some of them to my friends and they were like, oh, I felt this way too. And I was like, oh my God, I didn't even know that, it really is an empath machine as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, heartbroken's a big one. And then angry about American history is another big one.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the lovely thing with poetry. People can either relate. I mean, I couldn't relate to what that guy said to you in any way, shape or form, but I could understand why that would really, really annoy you, to say the least. So, that's the beautiful thing about poetry. It can evoke such powerful emotions, and you can tell that it's affected the person who's written it or inspired the person to write it, but also reading it or listening to it, it can really, really get to you in a way that you wouldn't necessarily get from a story, for example.
Absolutely. I mean, like, absolutely. There's so many like lives I feel like I've gotten to see into because of poems. I mean, that's why it's corny to say, but I love teaching so much. I love teaching I love reading my students' poems. I love like seeing the things that they care about. I don't know. It's great. Yeah. Even the poem, that's what I'm saying. Like the poem doesn't even have to be that good.
But it was,
it can teach you a lot about someone. Yeah. We want it to be good, but yeah, like, I don't know. Yeah. It's really, it feels like truly, I've said this before, but it feels like poems are like magic to me. Yeah.
Oh, definitely. And to be honest, when I was at school learning about history and the Second World War, it was the First World War, and I didn't really get it from a historical point of view, learning about the different battles and what year different things happened. But as soon as we started doing World War I poetry, that's when it all came to life. And that's when you started to really understand what those soldiers were going through and what it must have been like losing their friends and things like that. And I never got that from history. I got that from poetry.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, exactly. Because that's like the feelings. It's the truth.
Yeah.
And like the history has been shaped by the people who won, as they say. So
for sure.
Or shaped by, into this thing that will make people want to fight again,
Yeah, definitely.
That's not probably what the poems say.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I understand completely.
Yeah.
Well, if people want to get a copy of your poetry book, award-winning poetry book, it is called Joy is My Middle Name, and it's by Sasha Debevec-McKenny. So I have to ask you, Sasha, about the title, Joy is My Middle Name. Are there a lot of joyous poems in the book then? Or are you being ironic?
I think that it's both. It's ironic and also like, even like the poem I just read, like that's dark, but there's jokes in it, Yeah. So I think it's ironic and it's also like you will laugh, like you will enjoy reading it.
Nice, clever.
You might get punched in the stomach every so often without knowing it's coming, but you'll have fun.
Brilliant. Love it. Well, Sasha, it's been lovely to chat with you. Thanks so much for joining us and congratulations.
Thank you so, so much. I've had a really lovely time.
The Book Show with Hannah Murray.
Joining us on the line now is Kristen Perrin. She's originally from Seattle, where she spent several years working as a bookseller before moving to the UK to do a master's and a PhD. The latest installment in her award-winning Castle Knoll Files is How to Cheat Your Own Death, in which Annie Adams and her great-aunt Frances team up across decades to solve two interlocking murders. From the gritty streets of 1960s Soho to the lofty galleries of present-day West London, we can follow Annie and Frances as they race to bring a killer to justice. Welcome to the Book Show, Kristen.
Thank you for having me.
It's great to have you with us. So this is book 3, is that right, in the series?
Yes, that's correct. So book 1 is How to Solve Your Own Murder, and book 2 is called How to Seal Your Own Fate. So this is How to Cheat Your Own Death, number 3.
Great. So when you wrote the first book, was it always a plan to be a series, or did that develop?
Every writer, I think, dreams of being able to have more than one book. But when you're trying to land a book deal, you kind of just write one and hope for the best. So I kind of thought, one might be all I ever get. But just in case, I'll keep a couple of extra little ideas on file in case the publisher goes, yes, more of this, please. It almost feels like bad luck to plan ahead and be like, I'm going to do 7 books or something like that, because, it's like hubris almost, thinking, of course they're going to want all of my stories. But in this case, I was lucky enough to get some initial like interest in my book that followed on with more contracts. So I got to expand my world and my characters.
Yeah, fantastic. So tell us about your main characters that go through the series.
So this whole series is told from a first-person point of view that alternates from present day, where we have Annie Adams, who is 25 years old and is essentially our modern day amateur sleuth, and Frances, who is her great aunt, but Frances's point of view is in the 1960s, and that point of view is told through Frances's diaries, because Frances is the murder victim in our modern day timeline at the start of the series, at the start of book 1. Okay. So the linchpin of the whole series is that Frances went to a country fair with 2 of her friends in 1965 and was told by a fortune teller that one day she'd be murdered. And a bunch of events kind of happened in this summer of 1965 that kind of started to get Frances to believe that maybe this fortune teller was right. And we meet Annie in the modern day timeline, and she essentially is the person who is called to this big mansion that great aunt Frances lived in. And Frances basically spent the rest of her life being convinced that the fortune teller was right and one day she was going to be murdered. So she tried to stop that from happening by digging up dirt on her entire town. And she amassed this huge file of secrets and lies of the people around her, only to be murdered at the beginning of book 1. So Annie is tasked with trying to solve the crime, along with a couple of other, quirky characters, in a competition to solve the murder, because whoever solves the murder inherits Frances's millions and her grand estate. So we have 2 women who seem at the outset very different, but who almost really solve crimes together across the years. It's almost like a crime-solving duo, but one of them happens to be dead.
Yeah, love it. So can you tell, without giving too much away, a bit more about what happens in this book then, How to Cheat Your Own Death?
Yeah. So in the first 2 books, we were in the confines of Castle Knoll, which is your quintessential cozy English village, which is based on a village in the UK called Corfe Castle in Dorset. And I wanted to freshen things up a little bit. And so I've taken us to London. And so we have Frances's timeline in the 1960s. She's at university. She's kind of trying to find her feet on her own. She's working as a waitress in Soho while attending university during the day. And she befriends a really enigmatic but glamorous socialite named Vera. And Vera is found in an alley in Soho, murdered in a gruesome way. She has her heart surgically removed. And Vera is also married to a very renowned heart surgeon, so all eyes kind of turn towards the husband, but it's not so simple. And Annie, in our modern timeline, goes home to visit her mom, who has a townhouse in Chelsea. And her mother is a modern artist who's sort of burnt out. And her mother has taken on an apprentice that Annie knows nothing about. And that apprentice is found dead with her heart surgically removed. These crimes are decades apart, but Annie thinks, hey, I think this rings a bell. And Frances had all of these journals and all of these documents. So Annie starts rereading Frances's journal from the 1960s when Frances spent time in London. And she realizes that there are some really eerily similar things, that it's not just in the method, but, she starts to dig deeper and finds out that these two incidences really do have a lot that hasn't been uncovered yet, but that Annie herself is uniquely poised to shed light on. So,
yeah. So when you're writing a dual timeline, do you tend to write one timeline first and then the other and piece it together, or do you write it as it reads?
I write it as it reads, which is really important to my process because I like to feel the pacing on where the reader is going to get. Once the reader starts getting really hooked into one timeline, I tend to switch to the other timeline and get the other reader so that we're pacing along really well. Because personally, when I read dual timeline books, and the ones that I think do the best job are the ones that you're invested just as much in each timeline. You're not favoring one over the other. And it's really, really hard to get that balance. And I think one of the ways to do it is to almost, as a writer, explore both characters at the same time as their stories, like in sync as their stories would unfold. Because otherwise I'm going to get more attached to one timeline than the other timeline.
Yeah.
And I've felt that happen in the process several times, and it always flip-flops, but I'm always kind of wary of that because I want the reader to have a really good kind of balanced experience.
Yeah, that's true. I think everyone can probably relate to reading a dual timeline novel and being like, I can't really remember who these characters are. And then you get back to the bit that you're really into.
Yeah, like even if it's just two, I always find one that I'm really like invested in. And when it switches to the other one, I'm kind of like, yeah, okay, flipping pages. Like I want to get back to the person. So that doesn't mean that all readers will read it the same way I do. I think every reader gets attached to a character for their own unique reasons. But yeah, I think writing them as they come across in the book itself is the way that works best for me.
Yeah. And how do you choose the settings in the books? Corfe Castle and Soho and Chelsea, are they all areas you know well?
Yes. So a lot of the London locations are things that, obviously, not being from the UK myself, but I've lived here 20 years, so I'm almost at equilibrium. I've almost been in the UK for as many years as I was ever in the US, if that makes sense. So there are places that I was the most charmed by when I first came here. So with Corfe Castle, which has become, my fictionalized Castle Knoll, that was the first village that I ever saw in the UK, that I ever experienced. And it was absolutely everything and more that I would have, my American brain would have cooked up. It was like a biscuit tin. It was like a TV show and come to life. And I was absolutely charmed. And my husband is from there, so it made a lot of sense because we were always revisiting it, and I know it really, really well. With London, we only moved to London in the last decade, and I was absolutely blown away by just the energy of certain parts of it. I love modern art places, and I love music venues that are historical. So Ronnie Scott's was somewhere, which is a jazz club in Soho, somewhere that was kind of like a place I always wanted to see. It's got such historic, so many greats have played there. Greats continue to play there, and it's got such a vibe. And so it's become our favorite special occasion date night to go and see jazz at Ronnie Scott's. And so there's a lot that takes place there. The Barbican, really, I found it so fascinating. I went there for a concert and was just like, what is this? I feel like I'm on the moon. So the Barbican, there's a few kind of intense scenes that take place there. I think basically if you have a choice on a backdrop of where to set something, it always works better for me as a writer if I choose somewhere that I'm personally very fond of or invested in or attached to, because I feel like that, even if it's not obvious, I feel like that love of a place shines through in the writing. Even if people are being measured against that backdrop of a place.
No, definitely. And you're coming to it with a sense of authenticity as opposed to somewhere you've just looked up online.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. And how much planning do you do for your books? Because you've got the dual timeline. Is it important to plan in advance each chapter, or?
Yeah, it is important to plan in advance. I do give myself some freedom because I think if I plan things out incredibly meticulously, and I know a lot of writers do, but I personally get a bit, I don't know, restless with it. I get a little bit bored. I like to surprise myself, but equally, I can't just have a big void of, I don't know, let's see where this goes, because there are a lot of moving parts. There are a lot of characters in each of my books. It's kind of like there's always a heavy cast to work with, and I need to just kind of keep track of who the reader could be suspecting at which point and which clues are being put forward, which ones are authentic, which ones are red herrings. And I have to kind of have my finger on all of that because often, and I'm in the revision process for my fourth book now, and I find that if I don't keep track of that when I'm drafting, I kick myself down the road and think, wait, what was I doing here? Even after the book's already written. So I do a loose outline, and I allow myself to kind of move things around if I want to. Sometimes I'll get midway through a book and think, no, we need a bigger surprise in the middle, or we need something a lot more dynamic. But having spent half of a book drafting and getting to know the story, I'll usually have a better idea by that point. But when you start out with just an outline, you don't always have the most exciting twists or the things that are right for the time when you actually get there on the page, because you've really gotten to know the characters in the story by that point. So I do allow myself quite a lot of freedom to go, you know what? I don't think that this is going to work. We're going to change up who we're questioning here, or even sometimes big things. I've changed some really big things late in the game as well, and I've been like, I'm glad I did that.
Yeah, I mean, you have to be able to have that freedom, don't you? If you're thinking for whatever reason that it's not working, then you need to be able to change it, and you want to be really happy with what the final draft.
Yeah, there's nothing worse than reading through, particularly with murder mysteries that can be quite intricate. I think that if something is forced in terms of the plot, readers can smell it. I think that particularly murder mystery readers are incredibly clever, and they're trying to outsmart you. That's part of the fun of reading murder mysteries, is you want to feel like you're either, I see what you're doing, author. You're not going to fool me. And then, the author can surprise them, or, you're puzzling it out in your own way. So I think that when an author's trying really hard to just stick to a plan, it can sometimes make things feel a little bit stale, and like the plot is spinning its own wheels. And I like to not run into that really as often as I can. We all suffer from those things, but that's also what editing is for.
Yeah, sure. Well, if people want to get a copy of How to Cheat Your Own Death, it's available on our website, TRE.radio, and it's by Kristen Perrin, who we've been chatting with today. Kristen, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
You're listening to The Book Show with Hannah Murray on TRE.
Joining us on the line now is Anna James. She's the acclaimed author of the Pages & Co. series. Anna was book news editor at the Bookseller and literary editor of LUK. She hosts literary events and panels and is the co-founder and host of the London YA Salon. She's with us on the Book Show to talk about her new novel, Alice with a Y. It's an enchanting tale inspired by the beloved classic story of Alice's adventures in Wonderland. Welcome to the Book Show, Anna.
Thank you so much for having me.
I feel like your life is all about books, which is lovely. So you're if you're not writing books, you're talking about books, basically.
Yeah, essentially, yes. I am normally either reading, writing, or talking about books. And what didn't even make it into my bio is I was actually a school librarian before I was any of those things. So I really have always worked with books.
Oh, that's lovely. And when did you start writing them?
I've written for pleasure for as long as I could remember. I used to write me and my sister into Famous Five books when I was a child, but I started seriously trying to write fiction. It would have been about 2016. I was like in my late 20s when I first started writing what would become the first Pages & Co book.
Yeah, exciting. And how many are there in the series?
So we've got 6 books in the Pages & Co series, which is completely finished. And then I'm midway through another fantasy series called The Chronicles of Weatherwhy. And then we've got the standalone Alice book. So a few series, depending on how you feel about cliffhangers. We've got a completed series, a series on the go, and a standalone.
Oh, amazing. So how did this come about then? Tell us, you obviously are a fan of Alice's Adventures in Wonderland.
Yeah, it's a book that fascinated me as a child. I would say I was fascinated by it rather than I loved it, because it's a very strange book, the original, and it's one that I've actually got more from as an adult, which I thought was interesting in itself when sort of coming back to it. So my first series, Pages & Co, is about children who can travel inside of books, and one of the places they go is to the tea party, and I think that's kind of where the seed grew from, because Lewis Carroll's world and characters are just so much fun to play with, and of course, pleasingly, it's totally out of copyright, so you are allowed to play with it. And I just loved those kind of the moments in Pages & Co of playing with classics, thinking about like, why does the book sound like a book? Why does Wonderland sound like Wonderland? And I just thought it was ripe for having a sort of whole novel. And because it's such an odd book, there's a lot of flexibility in what you can do with it, because it's so much about the world and the feel and the characters and the language rather than the plot. So there's lots of space to play with other stories there, I think.
Yeah. So where did you start with this? What were you trying to achieve?
I wanted, I think ultimately I wanted to make it feel like an Anna James story inside of Lewis Carroll's world. So I started with really going back to the original. I live in North London near Highgate Woods, and I did a lot of wandering in the woods, listening to nonsense poetry on audiobook, trying to just like get into that feel and cadence of the nonsense. I did a lot of research into the original and the references, and learned a lot about how I think a lot of the references in the original have kind of been lost to the cultural imagination, but there's very little in the original that's just kind of like silly and throwaway. Almost all of it is rooted in real historical, political art, things that were happening when Carroll was writing. So I really kind of tried to take that principle. But my book is set in 1919, so it's about the original Alice's granddaughter, also called Alice but spelled with a Y, who goes back into Wonderland, and it's set just after the end of the First World War. So I also did a lot of research into just the feeling in the country after the end of the war. My Alice has lost her dad, so it's also a little bit about grief as well. But you can enjoy it very much as a book about Wonderland and a fun sort of adventure, or if you want to kind of look into that side of things, it's there if you want it.
And presumably people don't need to have read the original Alice's Adventures in Wonderland to enjoy the book.
No, absolutely not. There are, of course, some Easter eggs and jokes for people who know the original well, but you absolutely don't need to have read it at all. It's its own story. I think most people will have that top level knowledge of, an awareness of Wonderland, and that's really all you need. And actually, do you know what? I've never met anyone who doesn't have that, but I don't think you even probably would need that, because it's its own story. You can go in fresh with only the lightest knowledge of Wonderland.
It's funny, isn't it? It's one of those stories that there'll be a lot of people who haven't actually read the book, but they can tell you all the main characters and a bit about what happens.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? That's part of the reason that it was such an appealing and fun project to work on, because I think it's pretty rare. There's lots of retellings and reimaginings, but there's actually very few sort of books that, even if people haven't read it, there's so much awareness of it, and it makes it really fun to play with, because you can assume that almost all of your readers have at least heard of Wonderland, even if that's all they know.
Yeah, definitely. So tell us about your Alice with a Y.
So she has, as I say, just lost her dad at the end of the war. So she's really dealing with the kind of grief of that. She's grown up with her grandmother, who's the original Alice, telling her all these sort of wild stories of Wonderland, which she's always assumed aren't real. But she sat by a pond one day and an invitation hits her quite literally in the face. And it's addressed to an A, asking for help and also asking to bring some sugar to a tea party. So she decides to follow that invitation, ends up tumbling into Wonderland herself. She meets a mixture of some old favourites. So you will meet people like the Hatter, the March Hare, the Dormouse, but also some new friends, including a sailor fox who ends up as her guide along the way. There's also some kind of twists on familiar characters. So the caterpillar is very much there, but I was very cognizant of writing this as a children's book in 2025, 2026. So he doesn't smoke whatever he was smoking in the original. He's taken up smoking poetry. He's become a bookworm himself.
Oh, lovely. Nice. That must have been fun, I guess, playing with the old characters and creating new ones.
Yeah, it's really, I did a lot of kind of thinking through which ones to use. She only meets characters because obviously Lewis Carroll did there's the 2 books. So My Alice only meets characters from the first book because I'm actually writing a second Wonderland book about My Alice's brother, so they'll both be standalone. So I've kept the Through the Looking Glass characters for the second book, and it was fun, rereading and kind of I did a lot of playing around with the voices as well and working out which characters fitted into my story. I think I wanted to find that balance of I didn't want to promise a Wonderland story without the Hatter, for example. And the White Rabbit makes a cameo. But the fox is really the key new character. And actually, that's probably the place I've broken the most with the rules of Wonderland, because the original Alice doesn't really have a guide or anyone from Wonderland who kind of has her back. But I've given my Alice still a nonsensical guide, but someone who stays with her on her whole journey through Wonderland, or most of her journey through Wonderland.
Nice. And I think that a lot of people who are fans of the first book will love this. They'll love to see the characters that they know and love going on other adventures.
I really hope so. I was so relieved that the Lewis Carroll Society reviewed it positively. I was so nervous about that review coming out. So I felt that, yes, the Lewis Carroll Society have given it their stamp of approval. So that definitely made me feel a little bit calmer about people who love Wonderland going back to it.
Oh, absolutely. That's fantastic. How did that come about?
Well, I'm a member of the Lewis Carroll Society just as as a fan. I joined when I was starting to research it. And I was lucky enough to get to go to Christchurch, where Lewis Carroll worked, the college at Oxford, who have one of the biggest collections of Carroll kind of ephemera. And they came into possession of, this is getting nerdy, but the Linseth collection, which Linseth is a real an American collector of Wonderland, who donated a great swathes of it to Christchurch College. And they had a drinks to kind of celebrate the acquisition of so much amazing Carroll stuff. And whilst there, I met some of the people in the Lewis Carroll Society and very nervously sort of mentioned it to them, and wasn't sure if they would how they would feel about that. But they offered to review it, and I was very anxiously waiting. So the Bandersnatch is the Lewis Carroll newsletter, and I was very anxiously awaiting the edition. But thankfully, they liked it. Thank goodness for that. I don't know what I would have done if they didn't.
No, imagine. Oh, that's fab. And tell us about the YouTube videos that you make, A Case for Books.
Yes, I must admit I'm a little erratic now that I am writing so much. I actually have my debut adult novel coming out next year, so I'm increasingly, erratic with the YouTube side of things. But that sort of started when I was a journalist, when I was working at the Bookseller magazine and then at Elle. I was reading so much, because when you are a books journalist, you're reading kind of pretty strictly 3 months in advance because of print deadlines. And so I was just getting through, I literally read over 200 books a year, and I just ended up reading a lot of things that I didn't have scope to talk about or write about that I loved and wanted to recommend. And so YouTube became a great way to sort of just shout about books that I had read and really enjoyed that didn't find a place sort of in my professional journalism. And I've always enjoyed sort of talking about books online. When I had a book blog when I was a school librarian, which really honestly is what led to me working in journalism. It was through having a book blog that kind of people started reading with a bit more. Yeah, it doesn't exist anymore, but I wiped it from the internet. But I've always just really enjoyed reading, honestly, and talking to other people. One of my favorite things is recommending books. I love instead of just, I think the key to recommending books is not just recommending what you love, but it's paying attention to what somebody is telling you they love and trying to match them to something. So, and again, as I say, I was a librarian for 5 years as well. So I've just always really, really loved reading and really loved talking about books and helping people find books that they fall in love with.
Yeah. And are you a fast reader? Do you speed read?
So I am a fast reader. I can read very fast when required, but I only do that if required for work. I was a literary scout for a little bit, so reading sort of unpublished manuscripts for publishers, and I would read those exceptionally fast because of the job. But I'm a naturally pretty fast reader, but I do like to sort of luxuriate it. I think especially now I'm not a journalist, because when I was a journalist, I had to read so much that it's honestly a little bit of a treat to be an author and get to read almost entirely for pleasure. So I like to take a little bit more time than I used to. Yeah.
And do you read on recommendation? What draws you to a book?
Oh, that's a really good question. So yes, although I must admit I'm a little picky, I like to I definitely have people who I enjoy watching online who I know that their taste overlaps with mine. I have a dear friend called Eric whose booktube channel is called A Lonesome Reader, and we sometimes make videos together. But he knows my taste really well, and he reads a huge amount of books, so I really trust his recommendations. And also my local booksellers as well, the Children's Bookshop in Muswell Hill and the Waterstones in Crouch End. The booksellers there, I sort of go in and we'll chat about what we've been reading. So I think booksellers really know their stuff. So some booksellers who've got to know my taste, I've got to know theirs, and you can work out where you overlap and what to read next.
Yeah, nice. Well, if people want to get a copy of Alice with a Y, Return to Wonderland, it's out now. It's available on our website, tre.radio, and it's by Anna James, who we've been chatting with today. Anna, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Talk Radio Europe.
Your voice in Spain. You're listening to Hannah Murray on The Book Show.
Joining us on the line now is Stuart McBride. He's the best-selling author of many Logan McRae and Ash Henderson novels. He's also published standalones, novellas and short stories, as well as a slightly twisted children's picture book for slightly twisted children. He's with us on The Book Show to talk about his latest novel, Blood, Rust and Steel. Welcome to The Book Show, Stuart.
Hello, thank you very much for having me.
Oh, it's great to have you with us. And I'm interested about all the different genres and different types of books that you've written in. What made you write a slightly twisted children's book?
Well, it was actually raising money for a teaching mortuary at Dundee University, which sounds happy and romantic, doesn't it? So they were trying to raise £1 million to buy a new teaching mortuary, although it costs a lot more than that. And a bunch of us crime writers got together to do things to try and raise money. And I thought a children's book would be a good idea. So I did a little picture book, all rhyming and all the rest of it. I did the paintings, and I did the words, and we published it. And I came second in the competition, which means I got the dissecting room named after me.
Oh, brilliant. What an honour. That's fabulous.
It's one of the few things I am proud of in my career.
That's amazing. That's really special. So let's talk about the new novel then. Is this part of a series or is this a standalone?
It kind of depends on your perspective. It's part of the series in that Roberta Steele has been with us since the very first book, 21 long years ago. And she has now got to the point where she has to retire. Because when she joined, you did 30 years in the force, and that was it. You had no option. Off into the uplit pastures of sunny time you go. So she's just got to that point now. So it's sort of the end of her part of the series, and possibly the start of a new one, depending on whether or not people like it.
Okay, great. So tell us about Roberta Steele as a person and what she's been through in her career.
Well, she's completely unplanned to start with. She was just meant to be a little bit of background colour in the first book. And Logan McRae, to show that he knew the desk sergeant, has this wee chat about, did you hear D.I. Steele's sort of run off with Tony from Accounting's wife? And at that point, D.I. Steele was a man. And then the next thing that's said made it clear that no, the ideal is in fact a woman. And just like that, thump, she just appeared fully formed. And I love writing about her. She's such a fun character. And thankfully, a lot of readers have really sort of connected with her as well. They find her a very... she speaks as she finds, shall we say.
Yes.
And she takes no prisoners or fools. So a lot of fun to write about, and people seem to like her. So I've kept her around for 21 years.
Great.
And now it's time for her to...
So will a lot of fans of your books know her already then and know her history?
Yeah, but it's not... And anything that you need to know, you will learn in the book. I'm not one of those people who sort of does... see book 4 in the series for more details on this. No.
Right.
If it's important, you'll find out.
Yes.
But also you get a lot more about who she really is as a person. Because normally I write about her from other people's perspectives. So it's the mask that she presents to the world, whereas this is the opportunity to actually take that off and see what really burns and boils within her.
So is this from her perspective?
Almost completely.
Okay. So can you tell us, without giving too much away, obviously, a bit about what happens in this book?
Well, we kick off with a body being discovered in a bin in a lay-by. And it's been there for quite a long time. And this is set at a time where illness is ripping through the police force at this point. They're short-staffed. Steele is given a temporary promotion to acting detective inspector, because she used to be a DCI, but I demoted her at one point for being very naughty. And she and her sidekick, Tufty, have a bash at solving this crime. And then things go from bad to worse to absolutely terrible.
Okay.
I'm not going to say any more than that.
And do you have to plot a lot with your books, being a crime thriller? Are there lots of twists and turns that you need to carefully weave into the story before you write it, or...?
It depends very much on the book. Some books I can sit and plan from the start right through to the end. Others I can maybe get about a third of the way through, then I have no clue what happens after that. And no matter how much time I spend sitting down pondering it, I just cannot know until I write. And other ones where I just make them up from the start and keep going to see what happens.
Interesting. So how do you know which way you're going to go with each book? What inspires you to start the novel in the first place?
Whether or not I can do a plan. It really is that simple. If I'm sitting going, right, what happens next? I have no idea. But I really want to get started. And then I will find out as I go. It doesn't really matter with plans anyway. I mean, any plan famously doesn't survive the first contact with the enemy. And it's exactly the same thing with me for writing. It doesn't matter what the plan says. If I get to a point and think, ooh, actually, it would be much more interesting if this happens, that's what has to happen. Doesn't matter if it's planned all the way to the end, the more interesting thing always has to take precedence.
Yeah. And with the series that you've written, have they all been in order, or have you written one book from one series and then another book from another series? Are you kind of sort of mixing it up as a writer?
Well, I have a couple of main series. I've got the Aberdeen ones, which I have started for some horrible reason to describe as the Logan verse. Tongue-in-cheek, I'm not that bad. And also books set in Oldcastle, which is my fictional town halfway between Aberdeen and Dundee. And I like to be able to jump from one to the other, because it means I don't get fed up with writing about the same people all the time. I don't know about you, but if I have guests in my house, after 3 days, I'm getting to the point where I want to throttle them.
Yes.
And much though I love them, and they're great friends and all the rest of it, but just get out of my house. So having written a book, having spent 3 or 4 years with a character, I really want them to go do something else for a while.
Yeah.
Somewhere else, anywhere else. Get out of my house.
That's nice, though, because the last thing you want as a writer is to be bored and think, oh, not these guys again. So if you have a bit of a break, it must feel more exciting to come back to them.
Well, also because everything happens in real time in the books, there is generally a year between a book coming out. A year will have passed in their world, so things will have happened, and that means I get to discover new things about them, what they've been doing for the last 12 months. I stopped writing Logan for nearly 6 years, I think it was. So I didn't write an Aberdeen book for 6 years, and lots of stuff happened in his life in that time, which made it really interesting to write him again, because, I didn't know that about him.
And what was it that made you start writing crime thrillers in the first place? What fascinated you with that genre particularly?
I have always loved crime fiction, and I didn't realise this until people started asking. But the very first books that I took out of the school library were crime fiction. It was the Hardy Boys. And these were the first books that I got to choose. Because before that, it was books that the teachers told you to read or books that your parents had bought for you. But these were the ones that I chose, and I read all of them. And I would get one out, and I would read it overnight when I was meant to be asleep, take it back to the school library the next day, and get the next one. So I just burned all the way through the Hardy Boys. And then the school librarian thought, well, maybe you would like something a little bit more advanced, and gave me Dashiell Hammett. So I went from The Strange Case of Smuggler's Cove to Red Harvest, which is a different beast. But I loved it. I absolutely adored it. So I've always loved crime fiction. I've been reading it my entire life. So when it came time to write something, it just felt natural to write the kind of books that I love.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you ever remember thinking as a child when you were reading those books, I'd love to write books like this one day, or did that come much later?
No, I no ambition at all to be a writer when I was a kid. I really didn't. I just thought, books for me were just this most wonderful, magical thing. And I just loved reading. I never thought that I would take the step to the other side of the wire and become one of the horrible beasts roaming free across the literary landscape.
Are you pleased that you took that leap then? Are you happy with your career choice?
I honestly have no idea. I really don't. Every book is sort of an exercise in, have I done the wrong thing with my life? Should I have stuck to IT? Because until people start to read it, I have no idea if it's any good or not.
Well, you're obviously doing all right, because you're still with us, churning out fantastic novels, so your fans will be very happy.
Touch wood.
Yes. Well, if people want to get a copy of Blood, Rust and Steel, it is out now. It's available on our website, tre.radio, and it's by Stuart McBride, who we've been chatting with today. Stuart, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, thank you. It's been lovely.
The Book Show with Hannah Murray.
Joining us on the line now is Lauren Ho. She's a former legal counsel turned author whose writing explores the messy, heartfelt and often humorous realities of modern life. Originally from Malaysia, she's lived across Europe and now resides in Singapore with her family. She's with us on the Book Show to talk about her novel Two Lives with You, which asks of the two main characters, what if they never married? For an overwhelmed husband and wife, that what if wish comes true in an emotional and bittersweet novel about choices, sacrifices, and the love that they might lose forever. Welcome to the Book Show, Lauren.
Thank you for having me, Hannah.
It's a pleasure. It's great to have you with us. So tell me a little bit about the background to this novel and what inspired the subject matter.
I want to say my husband, but I still want to remain married. Well, actually, it's a book about, two burned out millennials. They're basically experiencing burnout in their lives in every aspect. Their parents, their high achieving workers, and they're just feeling a little unmoored from life because things are not turning out the way they thought they would be at this stage. So the protagonist, the female protagonist, is by default the single income earner of her family, and her husband has just been laid off, and it's a tough time for them. And so that's basically the premise of the story. And I wanted to just talk about how, millennial relationships are probably going through a reset. We're going through a very tumultuous time, and like many things are happening. And I just wanted to examine the relationship that was facing all these pressures.
Yeah. And asking the kind of questions that I suppose a lot of people ask, what if this happened? What if this didn't happen? It's a $1 million question, isn't it?
It is. And I really enjoy examining it, using like an alternate timeline and just giving them space to explore the what if in a so-called safe environment that turns out to be not quite safe because they didn't read the fine print. So, that's basically the premise of Two Lives with You.
Yeah. So it's a bit of is it magical realism, they call it?
I believe that's what they call it, yes.
Okay. So tell us a bit more about the two main characters, Dana and Nigel.
Sure. So Dana is an ER nurse. She is basically holding everyone in the family together because she's like the only person that's working and earning right now. Her husband has just been laid off from his high-powered job that he thought he would have forever. He's an admin, and he's been very successful until AI came and basically took his job. And so he's the stay-home parent now and doing pretty well in that respect. But at the same time, he's crumbling internally because he's kind of lost his sense of self and his identity. And she basically is just powering on like without an off switch and just basically, doing everything she thinks she needs to do in order to keep the roof and the lights on for everyone else without realizing that she's burnt out. And so one day, there is this opportunity for her to explore an alternate timeline where she maybe gets some time off for herself. So it's like a marriage vacation. And she takes it and she goes, I would like to explore that because maybe this is not the life that I should have had. Maybe I would have been happier if I had never met this Nigel person, right? Like marriage and everything is maybe overrated. So and she does that. And at the same time, no spoilers, but this is essentially the premise. Her husband, Nigel, does something similar. He makes a similar wish, and they end up in this alternate timeline. But in this alternate timeline, Nigel has lost all his memories, whereas Dana has not. So they're kind of like in this new environment and trying to figure out if they're still right for each other in a way. But there are complications that arise because they soon realize that not everything in this timeline is as innocent as they seem. So that's the premise of the book.
Must have been fun coming up with all that. So did you have a clear vision as to what you wanted to happen to them in this alternative timeline, or did that change as you were writing it?
I'm kind of a pantser in the author terminology. So I basically had an outline that I thought I would be able to stick to, but it's my fourth book. I should have learned by now that doesn't work in real life. And I just completely deviated because my characters took me to like different places, and they told me that the story was not what I had originally planned for them. So the story had evolved quite significantly from the summary that I had made for it.
Interesting. And with regards to the character of Dana, she is an ER nurse, and I know that you drew inspiration from various family members and friends who work in the US medical system.
That's right. So my brother-in-law is a surgeon in Baltimore, and he basically gave me a lot of insight as to how the healthcare system works in the U.S. And I also had a couple of friends who are nurses, and I interviewed them to just like get an understanding of how things work in an ER And it's very brutal. It's a brutal career, and you're constantly like fighting all kinds of like challenges, whether institutional, systemic, there's just so many things that are happening, right? And no wonder people get burnt out. No wonder they're so underappreciated, right? And it's really tough. And I wanted to highlight that because nurses don't get enough respect, I think. And they're such an integral part of the healthcare system. So I was very intentional in wanting my protagonist to be a nurse.
Yeah, I agree. Don't get enough respect or money a lot of the time.
Absolutely. And they're so specialized. They can be so specialized and they can be so experienced. And they basically are the carers, the people who are holding your hand when you're in a hospital. It's not really the doctors, right? The bedside care. It's the nurses.
Yeah. And with regards to the other books you've written, how does this compare? Is it very different?
I think from a tone perspective, if you want to call it that, like it's much more book club in nature, like because I'm known for writing very like humor forward books. With my last 3 books, they have been kind of classified as rom-coms, if not women, like comedic women's fiction. And with this book, I think it's more down to earth. It's more introspective. It's more book club fiction compared to my other books where humor was maybe like more front and center in the books. I really wanted it to reflect like the seriousness of the topics that I talk about in the book, which include like mental health, burnout, emotional burnout, professional burnout, lots of burnout. But it's a romantic book as well. Don't get me wrong. It's a book about second chance love, and the kind of love that comes from really seeing each other at your worst and loving each other despite these flaws. So it is also a deeply romantic book.
So was it a conscious thing to do something a bit different, do something with a bit less humor and a bit more seriousness?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I just wanted the story to shine more because sometimes with humor, it can be distracting. Humor is a tool, obviously, but it can also be very distracting. And sometimes you just want the situation and the themes to shine through without like the distraction of humor, if I can call it that.
Yeah, I know what you mean. And what about the title, Two Lives With You? Where does that come from?
I would have to say that's actually my editor's suggestion. We had a totally different title before, and we had to switch it because it just wasn't gelling anymore. So I have to thank my editor for proposing Two Lives With You.
And what does it kind of mean?
Well, it's basically saying like, you can have like a multitude of experiences or slash lives with the person that you choose. And in this particular context, in the context of this novel, it was 2 separate possible lives. Like they could stay in the past. I mean, in the non-alternate reality, real life, or they could stay in the alternate reality and maybe lose certain things. I don't want to spoil the book, but yeah, there are 2 timelines, hence the title Two Lives With You.
Okay, great. Well, if people want to get a copy of Two Lives With You, it's out now. It's available on our website, tre.radio, and it's by Lauren Ho, who we've been chatting with. Lauren, thank you so much for joining us.
No, thank you.
You're listening to The Book Show with Hannah Murray on TRE.
Joining us on the line now is Andrew Ray, who at the age of 85 has just published his debut poetry book. It's a book of inspirational religious poetry, and it's called Transcendence. At the age of 8, his family moved to South Africa, and after attending university in Johannesburg, he spent 10 years at Cambridge studying quantum physics and mathematics. After a career as an academic at various British universities, he took early retirement and trained trained as an actor. He now divides his life between the Highlands of Scotland, Wiltshire and South Africa. He's recently set up a charity supporting ecological education and research in South Africa. In Transcendence, Andrew delves into the moments that awaken a deep sense of connection with something beyond the physical realm. Welcome to the book show, Andrew.
Thank you for having me on the show.
Oh, it's a pleasure. It's lovely to have you with us. And congratulations, your debut poetry book is out. That's really exciting.
Yes, it's wonderful. I hope it means something to people.
Yeah. So what made you want to write it?
Well, I love writing poetry, and we had a small church group discussing religious poetry once a month, and I was allowed to contribute to it. And then they said, come on, you've got to publish. And so there we are.
Yes. So tell us a little bit about your background in terms of faith, because it has changed over your life, hasn't it?
Well, yes, I was raised as a Christian, as an Anglican. I went to a very inspirational school run by Anglican monks. And then I was at university in Johannesburg in the 1950s, very troubled time when apartheid was being made into law in a most awful way. And I and my friends became totally radicalized and unhappy, with the society we'd grown up in, and somehow one threw everything out, including the faith, which was sad. But in later years, when things went wrong with my research, I had a burnout, and I gradually turned back to religion and found via Buddhism, I found myself back in the Anglican Church.
Yeah, you say via Buddhism. What? Tell us about that period. What happened with Buddhism?
Well, I was struggling with this very difficult problem. I don't think anyone's fully solved it, even now, 50 years later. And my doctor said to me, you've got to have a rest. And one of my pupils, an interesting young man, had let me 4 great tomes on Zen Buddhism. So I had nothing else to do. So I read these, and I found it very inspirational. And I meditated and so on, and did yoga. But it didn't work in the end. But I say the Buddhists taught me how to pray. But in the end, I found my way back to the church.
Yes, interesting. So tell us about the poems in this book and the kind of themes that they explore.
Well, we start off looking for signs of transcendence in nature, moments when we see something which seems to go beyond the ordinary. I mean, it all started for me with a walk in an African forest, a wonderful place, very wild, full of animals. And on my own, I'd walk in it with unarmed, and there was no phone signal, no human beings within miles. And then suddenly one day, I had this overwhelming experience, a life-changing experience, that there was something out there beyond this incredible world.
What was that life-changing experience?
Well, I just felt, can I say that the awareness of God? If people say to me, why do I believe in God? It's because of that moment.
Yeah, amazing. And does it come naturally? Is it quite easy to turn that into poetry, your thoughts and feelings on religion and God?
Well, it does. Yes. I just enjoy writing poetry. It's not great poetry. I don't claim that, but it means something. It comes from the heart, and people, it does get through to people. Yes.
Well, religion is a subject that a lot of people are very fascinated about. It's one of those subjects that you're not supposed to talk about at a dinner party, isn't it? But most people have an opinion on it in some form of another. Either they obviously have faith in a particular religion, or they don't and have strong reasons why. So it's a fascinating subject that a lot of people will be interested in.
Yes, I hope so. Yes.
So can you tell us about some of the poems? Maybe you could share one with us.
Well, this is the one about the experience I've just mentioned, the African forest. A place where the presence of God rises like mist beneath your feet. Their silence speaks louder than thunder, and trees hang darker than grapes. A wilderness wild as swallows, a darkness bright in the autumn sun, where leaves lie undisturbed for centuries. A wilderness where the bones of women and children, once white in the sun, are crumbled now to dust between the leaves. Where a ghost-like leopard, all fiery-eyed, flits between the airy branches, and leaves my soul to wonder at what lies behind this sunlit world, what lies beyond this teeming life. Something too deep for thought, open only to prayer.
Oh, wow, that's lovely. Beautifully read as well. Really nice. Really nice. So how long does it take you to write the poems, would you say?
Well, not long enough, really. You know, what happens is, I do, just like writing, I used to do research in mathematics. I suddenly have an idea, and then it'll flit around in my head for several days, and then I'll sit down and write it out. And then I have to edit it, of course, and tidy it up.
Yes. And do you ever write poems that rhyme?
I tend to avoid rhymes, you see. And rhymes are very difficult. You know, if you're Shakespeare, then they're wonderful. But I'm allergic to what they call clanging rhymes.
Fair enough.
And there we are.
Yes. And I find it fascinating, your background studying mathematics and quantum physics, because you wouldn't necessarily put that with religion, would you?
Well,
particularly mathematics.
I don't know about that. I mean, when you get into the mysteries of the atom, you know, you realize that this world is a mysterious place. And that, well, my best friend now is a very distinguished scientist, you know, and we work together on the church and religion. So it's not that uncommon at all. I mean, all scientists, of course, are not. They're like everyone else. Some are religious and some aren't. The good ones are very often very creative.
Yes. Okay. And what about your time as an actor?
Well, that was fun, actually. It happened completely by chance. I was a lecturer at university, and my then wife was invited to have a part in a film. A friend who was a professional filmmaker was using friends for characters, you see. And so, of course, someone didn't turn up, and I said, "Well, I could do that." And then she said, "Well, I suppose so." And then the film. Anyway, in the end, she said, "Oh, Angry, well, you're the star." And so I was 55, and I thought I'd gone as far as I could. I kept some of the teaching on, the bit I really wanted, you know.
Yeah, nice.
But I trained as an actor and had great fun with that.
Lovely. So with the poetry, having got this book out, has it made you want to do more? Do you think there's another book in you?
Well, I do, yes. I've written an awful lot, and these ones are just they are the religious ones. I write about all sorts of things.
Like what?
Well, I write memorial poems about dear friends who died, and I write an awful lot about nature. Just anything. I wrote a poem about washing up the other day, which I'm quite pleased with.
Oh, nice. Well, there could be another poetry book in you then.
I hope so, yes.
And you obviously have a passion for nature. Tell us about this charity that you've set up.
Well, in Africa, you know, where I go, my father set up a botanical reserve in the mountains. It was on land that nobody wanted, you know, it was thought of as just wild. And it's a wonderful place, and we have students visiting all the time. We've encouraged, because I was a scientist, I encourage science and education going on there, and they keep discovering new and wonderful things there. And my little charity is to help with that, to give students travel grants to go there, and it pays the herbarium manager. We're just sponsoring a book at the moment. They've discovered Africa is so amazing, 800 different species of plants, flowering plants, just in this very small area.
Gosh.
So, and it's so terribly important, you see, to save this for the future, because it could be trashed very quickly, you know.
Yes. Well done. That sounds amazing. If people want to get a copy of Transcendence, it's available on our website, tre.radio, and it's by Andrew Ray, who we've been chatting with today. Andrew, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much. I enjoyed it.
You're listening to Hannah Murray on The Book Show.
Joining us on the line now is Melinda Lee. She is the #1 Amazon charts and #1 Wall Street Journal best-selling author of Echo Road, the She Can series, the Midnight series, the Scarlet Falls series, and so much more. She has earned numerous writing awards and been an International Thriller Award nominee for Best First Novel. She's had over 16 million copies of her books sold. She's with us on the Book Show to talk about her latest page-turner, You Can Tell Me. It features true crime writer Olivia Cruz. Welcome to the Book Show, Melinda.
Thank you for having me, Hannah.
Oh, it's great to have you with us. I can't believe this is this the start of your 7th series?
I guess so. I'd have to count.
That's amazing. Wow. So when you write a book, when you're starting a new book, do you kind of decide that it's going to be a series, or do you write a standalone and see what happens?
In the beginning, it was a little more touch and go, write a book, see how it sells, see what my publisher wanted. But now I plan ahead. I get to decide now. It's up to me.
Yeah, great. So when you have an idea for a book, then what kind of things make you think this could develop into a series or should be a standalone?
With this particular series, this character was actually introduced 2 series back in my Morgan Dane books. But I liked her so much that when my publisher came to me and said, we would like something new, we would like you to start a new series, I immediately thought of Olivia because her character was just fun to write. She's kind of spunky.
So tell us a bit more about Olivia.
Olivia was a journalist, and as everyone knows, journalism has significantly changed. There isn't very much print media anymore. Everything has gone to online, and she found herself in a place where her job just wasn't a good fit anymore. So she began writing true crime novels. And that's where You Can Tell Me picks up.
Yeah. Okay. So was it interesting looking into the world of true crime? Because you've done a lot of police procedurals before. Was this very different?
It was refreshing. After my Bree Taggart series, I have 11. I just finished book 11 in that series, and those are police procedurals. And even the 6 books I wrote before that in the Morgan Dane series, she's a defense attorney. So it's still built within the framework of the legal system. Whereas Olivia's book, I had a lot more freedom that I haven't had in many years to write something a little bit different.
Yeah.
So I found that very refreshing.
Yeah, nice. And you spend a lot of time coming up with the characters, don't you? Developing the characters. The plot sort of comes second.
Yes. I know when I pick up a book series, it's the characters that I become invested in. It's the characters that bring me back to book 6, 7, 8 in the series. The plot of each individual book is important, but I believe it's the characters and the people involved that bring readers back.
Yeah, fair enough. And for ideas for the plot, do they come from things that have happened, so they're quite realistic?
I try to pick them from news headlines. Media outlets are very good at creating hooks. So sometimes I don't even bother to read the article because the things I come up with are usually more exciting than reality. Reality usually isn't quite as interesting. But headlines are a really good place for me to pull book plots and hooks.
Yeah. And it must be fun when you're writing any kind of mystery like this, putting the clues in and misdirecting the reader, all that kind of stuff. That must be a big fun part of this.
It is. And I think that's what draws me through the whole crime novel genre is it's a challenge. There's a lot of aspects to every book, a lot of structural parts that have to come together. And it does create a challenge so that I'm 42 books in to this career. It's still interesting, and it's still a challenge every single time I sit down and start a new one.
Yeah. Do you feel like you found a way that works for you, though? Do you write most, if not all of your books in the same kind of way?
I would like to think that, but it doesn't always work out that way. I write on deadlines, so sometimes I have deadlines stacked up. Like right now, I have them stacked up for the next 2 years.
Oh, wow.
So I don't really have the luxury of sitting back and waiting for a great idea to come to me. I have to come up with a hook and I have to start writing it. So sometimes I know what's going to happen and sometimes I don't.
Yeah.
Sometimes I just have to sit and start writing because, it has to happen. It's due.
Yeah. And how much time do you spend writing each day? Do you have set hours that you like to write?
Sometimes, other times I just have a set page numbers, so many pages I like to do in a day. And I try to schedule that out, actually. So sometimes I don't write too many hours. Right now I'm writing quite a few. I just turned a book in last month and starting a new one. So it's a lot of hours for me. I'm probably writing 8 to 10 hours a day right now.
Wow.
Trying to get that next book off the ground.
Gosh, that's a lot. Do you feel the pressure?
Sometimes. It's still a pretty good job. I have a 2-dog pile up on the stairs as my commute. I just kind of stumble down to my office with a full cup of coffee. So it's pretty good.
Yeah.
And I can take it with me. It leaves me free to travel and plan. I can plan like I'm going on a cruise in a few weeks. So I'm going to take that whole week off. So, I appreciate the flexibility.
Yeah, nice. And very different to your previous career. You were working in finance, weren't you?
Yes, that was really awful. It was not a good fit. I was not very good at it. You have to be a little cutthroat to do that.
Yeah. So this is a much better fit for you.
This is much better. Yes.
Nice. And without giving too much away, can you tell us a bit about what happens in You Can Tell Me?
Well, what happens is it's the 3rd anniversary of Olivia's own kidnapping, which readers could read about in Save Your Breath, which is the 6th Morgan Dane book. And she is supposed to be doing an interview with her friend, who is a true crime podcaster. And when she goes to do the interview, her friend doesn't show up. And she knows her friend would never stand her up on this day. So even though the police are not particularly concerned, sometimes they aren't unless there's a clear sign that there's been violence or foul play. She knows something is wrong and she knows something happened to her friend. So she begins to look for her.
Wow. Okay. So when you say 3 years after her kidnapping, so she obviously came back from the kidnapping.
Yes. She obviously survived.
Yeah.
That's not too much of a spoiler. I think people are going to figure that much out.
Yeah. So we obviously throughout the story learn about what's happened to her friend and all of that side of things. Is that the crux of the story?
It does. And it brings back a lot of Olivia's own trauma that she has not fully processed.
Okay. And do you have to do a fair amount of research for your books, depending on what's happened and what the characters are going through, or does it all come from you and your head?
No, there's a tremendous amount of research because all of these things happen within, scientific and procedural. There's a framework. Right. I mean, we can't defy science and we can't defy forensics and we can't defy, what the police would actually do in each situation. So it has to make sense.
Okay. And do you enjoy the research side of things?
I do. I will go down a rabbit hole. I'm a nerd. I like it very, very much. I could research all day. So I actually have to stop myself and force myself to go write and then just research where I need to.
Yeah. Yeah, I suppose you can do too much. Well, it's not about doing too much research. I suppose it's about putting too much research into the book. So you end up explaining things too much.
Yes, you never want a giant red flag across the page saying, look how much research I did.
Yes, exactly.
But I find all of those things interesting. So it's hard for me to say, no, other people are not going to find this interesting. This is boring.
Yeah, very difficult. So this is the start of a new series then, but you don't know how many there's going to be yet.
There will be at least 3.
Okay.
The second one, the second one is called I Know Your Secret, and that will release in September of 27. I don't think I have a release date for the third one yet.
Okay. You've got to write it
number
first.
2, but I haven't written number 2 yet. I'm just starting that one. So,
oh, great.
I would love to tell you what it's about, but I don't know yet.
Well, if people want to get a copy of You Can Tell Me, it's out now. It's available on our website, tre.radio, and it's by Melinda Lee, who we've been chatting with today. Melinda, thanks so much for joining us.
Oh, thank you so much, Hannah.
You've been listening to a TRE production. If you've enjoyed this program, there'll be another episode waiting for you next week, right here on this platform, where you can also access our extensive back catalogue of shows and interviews. For more information on our live programming, social media channels and apps, and how to contact Talk Radio Europe, please visit tre.radio.